The wide receivers will transform this Vandy offense. They will be electric, I promise.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. We got an exciting one today. It's day 2 of spring practice. We're going to break it all down, and this wide receiving core will be electric. They're going to transform this offense. I know it seems odd to say because overall they had a rough day, but the silver lining is the opportunities that they can create for themselves, the separation, things like that, to make plays for themselves. This cornerback group also will help push them to that point because of the immense competition they're going to be going throughout the course of spring practice. So this wide receiver core will no doubtedly transform this offense into something that is a beast to deal with in the SEC. Next, we break down the rest of the pass game system because it takes 11 to complete a pass. As you know, the quarterback competition will heat up a great deal, and Coach K and the offensive line will get a huge boost from Bryce Henderson with him starting practice soon. And also we'll get a good look at the offensive line when the pads come on, they start doing more 11-on-11 work. So look forward to that. Then we're going to wrap up the show. I'm going to tell you how Vandy can go down to Athens and come back with a win in their regular season finale. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So the fact that this wide receiver room will transform this offense is a bit of a take because this is probably the least experienced group on the team when you break it all down, right? And I know a lot of people are saying offensive line is this and whatever. They've got some talent. May not be starting experience at Vanderbilt talent and understanding Coach K's system talent, which will take some getting used to. But this is probably the most talented offensive line group that we've had, I think, at 3 different, like they can fill out 2.5 for sure full units of offensive linemen, probably 3 if you really want to break it down. They didn't have that last year. They have it now. I'm excited about it. Okay. We'll talk more about the big guys here in a little bit. So, but the fact that this is the least experienced group, the least proven group, we're talking about the wide receivers now, in case you're keeping score at home. This is the least experienced group on the team. This is the group that is the biggest question mark, might have multiple question marks throughout it, right? When your only guy that really produced at a consistent level is Junior Sherrill, Richie Hoskins to a degree, but really it's Junior Sherrill, and then you got to figure out who's next, okay? And honestly, you've got to find a way. And to me, the coach in me would find, I'm going to try to get him on the field wherever he can help. That's priority number 1, obviously. But in an ideal world, Junior Sherrill plays the slot for me, okay? And the slot is a very important position. So I think sometimes people hear it, he's putting him in the slot. It's like I'm sending him to football purgatory or something. That's definitely not true. The slot receivers can do a ton of damage in the SEC. Slot receivers do a ton of damage all the time in the NFL. Those guys are super productive, running crossing routes, seam routes, wheel routes, things like that. I mean, there's a reason why NFL teams, especially, and really good college teams scheme to motion their top guy into the slot because there's a lot of traffic there. It's a tough area to defend. And Junior Sherrill is explosive and can do a lot of that stuff. And a lot of times you ask your slots to run jet sweeps and fast screens, like the bubble screens that stretch horizontally, stuff like that you ask your slot receivers to do. That's what I think Junior Sherrill is good at. And I think that's what his experience would lend him to be able to do. And then Richie Hoskins and Bosky Barrett are two really good backups that are going to be fighting for those reps, I think, behind Junior Sherrill. So that, I think, is a good thing. That is what we're looking forward to as far as the experience coming back to the room. If there's a way that the reps can or these wide receivers can solidify themselves into these spots on the outside, if they can push Junior Sherrill to the inside, this is going to be a real offense. All right. Because Junior Sherrill, like I said, is very explosive. And I would love to see a safety come down or a nickel corner come down to try to guard Junior Sherrill. You're going to have to game plan for that. So, but here's the catch. Okay. In order to get that, in order to get Junior Sherrill down into the slot, which is what you need, that's just an ideal situation. I think he's good enough to play just about anywhere. He's best in the slot. The best thing would be some of these young guys. They're struggling right now. They had a lot of drops today, from what I read on the practice reports. They had a lot of drops. There's not really anyone that's kind of separating themselves. I think there's some guys that are making some progress. Like Chance Fitzgerald had a better day. Joseph McVay, he's still kind of consistent, but like, I think these guys are starting to try, like, I think the reps are going to start, it's going to be very muddy, I should say. It's probably a better way to put it. It's going to be very, very muddy to see who's going to play those other receiver slots, because I think right now they're all just kind of struggling and they're all just trying to find a fit. And Fitzgerald, again, was a little bit better. But it's just, it's just not quite there yet. And that's okay. It's only day 2 of spring practice. So, it's not, it's not panic button time or anything, or that group doesn't suck by any means. They're just struggling a little bit with the opportunities, and the timing is probably a lot of it. The fact that I think the quarterback competition, and they're just seeing, 5 different guys throwing passes like that. I mean, that's an underrated challenge for that position group. So we'll get you'll get clearer answers as those guys kind of, somebody's going to get it, somebody's not. Like it's going to happen. Like it's going to, somebody's going to, or they're going to go to the portal to get somebody that's going to get it. I don't know. I don't think they're going to have to get there. Trent Hudson, I think, has a chance to really come in, but he's not coming in until June. So this is going to be a group that, again, a lot of questions need to be answered. But here's the thing. I think a lot of people will focus on the drops and the missed opportunities. Like, oh my gosh, these guys are dropping passes left and right. These guys can't play. This, there's no answers. Like every question that I've gotten, obviously I get a lot of O-line questions, like people that stop and talk to me like, hey, Vandy's just not going to be very good up front, right, on the offensive line. And I always tell them the answer I give them every single time, and this isn't just because of the recent stuff that I became aware of. I've always said this. They're going to be good. This offensive line is going to be really good. They have an NFL caliber center to lead the way, and he might be the offensive lineman I'm most excited about. But it's like picking your favorite children. Like what, you love them all for various reasons, but there's going to be some competition there as well. Like, and there's going to be probably another depth addition in the portal. I think they're going to use this spring to kind of figure out what they need. If they need anything on the offense, they may not need anything. That's also a thing. Like what kind of answers are we going to find out about Sandoval, about Wesley, and about some of these down the line guys. And I think I read somewhere where Grayson Morgan had to medically retire. So I'm thinking they'll probably go to the portal to fill his spot, whether they get a guy that can come in and start immediately, or they get like a depth guy that can come in and be in a reserve role. I'm not sure what direction they would go. My guess would be if you want to hire me as the scouting director and I can kind of help you choose, maybe that's the case. I don't know. But I think it's going to be some interesting answers there with that being said. So I guess I just did my little line segment right then and there. But this, I think what people need to focus on is this. with the wide receiver group. I think people need to focus on the fact that right now they're struggling with timing. They're struggling with chemistry with these quarterbacks. But the focus, I think, needs to be, as of right now, and I think Coach Bailey's looking at this stuff, but like, look at the opportunities they're creating for themselves. Are they winning those one-on-one battles? How are they struggling? How are they progressing against these corners? Martell Height is giving everybody a hard time. And Martell Height might come over and play a little receiver. Like, he might do the Travis Hunter thing or the Charles Woodson thing with whoever, whatever age you are and whatever two-way starter or two-way player that you rooted for. But, he might come over. But it's going to be, who's going to create those opportunities for themselves, right? If you're making drops, there's a difference between passes defended or passes not complete and drops. Like, drops are, like, I classify a true drop as I won my rep, I got open, I created space, the ball hit me in the hands and it fell to the ground. That's a drop. Okay. Now, in order, like, you have to do like 5 good things in order to get to the point where you drop the ball. And that's your release, that's your stem, that's your break, and that's how well you create space. Those are the things. I don't know if that was 5. Help me with the math there, but you have to do a lot of good things just to give yourself an opportunity to drop a pass. And so I think focusing on that, the catches will come, right? If you can continue to do that part of it and get yourself open, you're going to find yourself on the field more so than the guy that struggles getting off the line against Martell Height, or, because Martell Height, hate to break this to you, he's a really good corner. Okay. But when you look in the league, he's probably middle of the pack in the SEC. And that's not an indictment on him. That tells you how good the league is, right? That tells you how good the league is. So this is going to be an interesting run, but focus on the opportunities that they're creating. But this group will be electric. I think this group has a lot of promise. The cornerbacks are really pushing them. This is, like I said in the last episode, this is a really deep cornerback room. This is a really talented cornerback room. And those guys are pushing these wide receivers. And these wide receivers are going to have no choice but to get better, because they have to. Because this is what they're competing against all the time. This is great for them. So anyway, but in order for the passing, nothing else matters. But in order for the passing game to flourish, the rest of the passing system has to excel. How's that going to happen? Well, wouldn't you like to know? I'll tell you next. Hey, but first, we're going to talk about FanDuel. That's right. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. So I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3. I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. So right now, new FanDuel customers can get $100 or $150, in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. Free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Speaking of which, if you need a second listen, Locked On SEC is the place to go. Chris Gordy does a phenomenal job of breaking down the best conference in all the land. But I also would be remiss if I didn't tell you about what's coming up on the Amazon Fire TV Channels app. That's right. They're doing a bracket breakdown, and all the Locked On hosts are going to be part of it, hopefully including this guy. Going to talk about Vandy basketball, and if they get a bid into the tournament, then, which I think is likely at this point, They can pretty much clinch that with a win over Georgia. I think they've already kind of clinched it, but getting blown out against Arkansas didn't help their cause, but I think they're still in nonetheless. But bracket breakdown, it's going to give you a chance, give a lot of people a chance. It's going to take this show to Amazon, which I'm excited about. So make sure when that starts happening, you check that out, Amazon Fire TV Channels app. This Locked On thing's going big. So make sure you figure that out. So also, Stephen Willis, Locked On Ole Miss, does a phenomenal job too. He's the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there for a reason. So you should listen. Anyway, talking about the passing game. Okay, it's a whole system. Okay, and I have this principle that I work with, that I work under. Not principle as a person, principle as a concept. Right, called focus. Right, and the focus. The first part of that is flow. Okay, and flow involves systems, and you have to have great flow in your systems. And and just think about it this way: there's a river, and how your river flows, does it flow smoothly and strongly? Because if it does, there's no blockage, there's no impediments, there's no things stopping your flow of your river. If you have a lot of emotional interference, which is that blockage, you have a lot of adversity, you have a lot of things blocking up your flow, blocking up your river. It's going to slow down, it's going to bottleneck, and it's going to weave and wind and take the long, arduous path to wherever it dumps into. Okay, I know that's a really long way of saying that, hey, it takes electric wide receivers taking advantage of their opportunities, but it's going to take a quarterback delivering the ball and an offensive line to keep that quarterback upright long enough to be able to throw the ball. So that whole system has to flow. And all that whole system flows all the way to the offensive coordinator and up to the head coach, right? It's got to flow from there down. And the result is the end zone. So it's got to flow to the end zone, right? And so you have to have a strong offensive line. And I think that, and I think that, so some of my episodes have probably gotten misconstrued. I've been a huge fan of the offensive line. I've been a huge fan of Coach K. He was one of the first. No, he was probably the third hire on the offensive side of the ball when I started this show, because it was Tim Beck, then Jerry Kill, and then I think they got Coach Klinakis, right? And then they had an offensive line assistant who went to Otterbach, who went to the Titans, and then they hired Coach Nady. Now, I was excited about Coach Nady. I still am. I think this is a really strong coaching group. And, I had heard a rumor somewhere. I'm not going to tell you where I heard the rumor or where I saw it. But there was something floating around out there that this might be Coach K's last year. And I'm not sure if that's true or not. I don't think it's true. I don't necessarily think it's true. I think it's a possibility. It's always a possibility because college football is just that way. It will just burn you out. That's just kind of the nature of the thing. So, even if I speculate on it, I don't necessarily everything I speculate on. I don't necessarily believe wholeheartedly. I'm speculating on it and giving you the option to kind of digest it and say, okay, I'm going to take that part and I'm going to, or take this part or that part or whatever. I'm giving you options when I speculate. This is commentary. This is perspective. And from my perspective, I saw that and I'm thinking, I saw that, then I saw the assistant guy go to the Titans, and then they hired a really good experienced offensive line guy from FCS. He's one of the best in FCS. And, I kind of just, that rumor kind of just elevated, right? And so anyway, I don't, probably not true. I don't think it's true. Coach K's a machine. Anyway, nonetheless, this offensive line group is going to be special, right? And last year it was a learning experience. I've never said they sucked, but this group is it was a learning experience last year. They had the whole and I even talked to Kurt Page about this. I was a huge fan of this too. If you don't believe me, go. I've been a huge fan of the offensive line forever. But the whole switching of the strong side, quick side, that's old school, man. I love it. And if you can make it work for you, I think it's a little odd for the guys. It takes them a little bit of getting used to. I think there is a bit of a learning curve because of that. That's kind of like the downside of it, I guess, if you had to. But, I think if you can find the right guys that mentally can handle that and physically that fit into what you want as those positions, you can really, really flourish because you can do some things messing with people's tendencies and stuff. So anyway, going back to this passing game system, for it to work, Diego Pavia has to be upright. Diego Pavia has to have the time to be able to throw the ball or the edge to be able to get outside the pocket and throw on the run, things like that. I'm not talking about the run game right now. I'm just talking about the pass game. So they have to be able to communicate. That's the biggest thing. And I think the biggest piece to that is Jordan White, NFL caliber center. I think he's the perfect fit for that because I think you're going to have better communication this year. I think sometimes this offensive line last year got themselves in trouble because they were banged up and they had to switch combination. It felt like they switched combinations and there was guys in there that obviously hadn't gotten a lot of reps for a reason. And I think there's a lot of guys they had to count on that they didn't necessarily know they were going to count on. And there's a bit of a learning curve there. There's a bit of a communication curve there. And, against a team as talented as Tennessee or LSU or Texas or, these teams that have the South Carolina that had these elite defensive lines, like if you're not communicating well and you have a slight flaw in your footwork and fundamentals, they will expose that. And that's all I'm saying with that. That's all I've ever said, right? Guys that had to play because there was guys that had to play because they had to play, not necessarily because they were the best guy. Now, I think that situation's a lot different this year because of the people you brought in from the portal. And this is an exciting group of offensive linemen. Bryce Henderson being the latest addition. Isaiah Glass is going to be incredible. Jordan White's going to be incredible. And then you just got to kind of figure out how they're configured. And you got to kind of figure out who your depth piece. Like you have a really good second unit. And I'm not sure who the center is in that second unit, to be honest with you. That'd be interesting to kind of figure out and see how that unfolds. That second unit, like there's going to be some reserve battles going on there too. So that'll be fun in and of itself. 11 on 11, like I want to go to 11 on 11 practice. I think those things would be insanely fun. So that would be outstanding. But this is going to be an exciting year for this offensive line. I think you're going to see the most growth. And when I said that this rebuilt offensive line, I meant that they had to replace a lot of guys that started last year because those guys aren't here. They left. They went on to the next level or they graduated or whatever. Those guys aren't here. Like they lost a bunch of talent. So they have to replace all of that. That's all. That's what the rebuilt meant. So anyway, they don't suck. This offensive line never sucked. They struggled a little bit. That's not sucking. They just struggled a little bit. And I'm sure Coach K said worse in his meeting. So to the O-line, I salute you. But you guys are going to be vital in the success in the passing game. So I'm very excited about that. I'll break that down more as spring goes by. We'll have plenty of time to break down offensive line play. I'm kind of an offensive line nerd if you really think about it. But anyway, the Hoops team travels to Athens. Can they come back with a win? We'll talk about it and wrap up the show next. But first, we're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada PRO-4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. So with the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team plus the gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room up for up to 8 people, the Armada PRO-4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada PRO-4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. So take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada PRO-4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. FanDuel.com. All right, wrapping up the show here, Locked On Vandy. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. Follow the show at Locked On Vandy on all social media platforms. Feel free to give me feedback. Feel free to like and subscribe, and wherever you are, feel free to do so. Okay, but we're going to switch over to basketball because this team is, well, not so much anymore. They're not red hot, but they do travel to Athens. And big shout out before I get into the men's team. Big shout out to the women's team, SEC Freshman of the Year Michaela Blakes and the Lady Commodores. For the first time in program history, they have beaten the Lady Vols twice in one season. And I think it's because the Lady Vols were wearing the all blues. So, but it is a huge deal for Vanderbilt. They make a run to the quarterfinals. It's not over yet. For them, but a huge deal for them. They're making a run. They're started their March Madness process, and they're going to, I think they're going to earn a decently high seed in the NCAA tournament. So hats off to our Lady Commodores. That's a big deal. And the Vandy boys, they welcome Xavier to town. The Musketeers, they begin a 3-game set. So that's going to be they're going to look to bounce back there. They had a rough weekend last weekend. Midweek game got canceled, or one of them at least. They ruled St. Bonaventure, so I don't know how good that is, but anytime you can score a lot of runs, that's pretty good. So it's going to be good. So this team's going to look to bounce back on that. But the basketball team travels to Athens. They finish out the regular season on the road, looking for a win. Now, Georgia is a bubble tournament team, so it's going to be the same scenario as Arkansas. So here's what you have to do. Nothing else matters in this game, okay? Nothing else matters if you can't be focused enough to do the little things, because you can get absolutely destroyed if you're not on top of your game. Okay. The mental aspect of it is important. Okay. And that's what, and I think that, again, we could take that Arkansas game and really break it down and say, okay, well, this didn't go right and this didn't go right. And Jason Edwards had a horrible game. Jalen Carey hit a wall. We just weren't shooting well that night. We had a horrible end of the first half. Like, all of that can be summed up into one thing. They just weren't mentally there. They were sloppy. They were satisfied because they're in the tournament now. They were satisfied. It was a textbook letdown game, right? That's all that was. It was a letdown game. The focus wasn't there. They weren't right mentally, and they had a horrible game. That's all that was. This is a really good team that, if they're focused, they've got a shooter in Tyler Nickel. Jason Edwards is a scorer. His performance is only going to go back up. Jalen Carey, I think, if he can stay out of foul trouble, he's going to be good. And it's just this is a team that is tenacious, relentless, and they'll get after you. They just didn't against Arkansas. Arkansas was hungry. Vandy was not. That's all it is. And if Vandy just gets back to playing their style of basketball, it's not going to matter what happened against Arkansas. They're going to beat Georgia. There's no amount of breakdown I can tell you about Georgia that's going to make anything different. It's all about what Vandy's going to do in this one. It's like, you don't have to worry about stopping this guy or that guy. And of course, they have their star players. They're in tournament position now. But that's the biggest thing in this matchup, because of the circumstances are exactly the same as they were this past Tuesday, except you're not playing late at night. About the only difference. But you're on the road, which I guess cancels it out. And you're playing against a very hungry Georgia team who is looking for their first tournament bid since, I don't know, long time. 2016, I think, 2017, something like that. I think Anthony Edwards was on the team, who's now in the NBA. But if they can do their thing Vandy just needs to, I mean, I know that seems very superficial and very surface, but it's like the simplest analysis. If Vandy plays their game in this contest, they'll be fine. If Jason Edwards doesn't try to jack up 3 after 3 after 3, they will be fine. To me, he's a scorer. He's a guy that if you get him the ball at the top of the key, he's going to put it on the floor, and he's going to teleport past you, and you're going to be wondering what the hell just happened. And he's going to be up by the rim laying the ball in, hopefully not getting pinballed. That's what Jason Edwards does. That's what he does best. That's what I see with him shooting and with him driving. He's a driver. He's a scorer. That's what he does. Jalen Carey and McLaughlin need to stay out of foul trouble, and they just need to play their game. That's all. That's it. Play your game. Be focused. In strong. That's it. Simple as that. Everything else will fall into place. They need to shoot better. They just stay calm, play your game. That's it. But anyway, well, we got a lot of action happening this weekend. So it's going to be good. I got something big coming up on next week on Monday and Tuesday. It's a 2-parter with someone very, very special. So you don't want to miss that. And we'll get you into SEC action. I'll be coming at you from Naples, Florida, a little bit next week, if I can, and then we'll carry it on out, and we'll inch closer to March Madness. We'll inch closer to football season, and we'll inch closer to hopefully the baseball team making another appearance in Omaha. So that being said, have a good one. Peace out. Anchor down. Behave yourselves. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here next time on the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Peace.